desert in the great American Southwest. I'm Art Bell.
Slamming into your radio like a supercharged nanoparticle of unobtainium. My name is George Knapp.
I'm Richard Serrett.
This is Connie Willis.
I'm George Norrie. Welcome to Coast AM.
It's great to be here.
Some bright morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to that home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Coaster Nights, welcome everyone and all peoples of all stripes and belief systems to the Sunday sermon. We're going to get a little weird and esoteric today. I hope that's all right with everybody. If that isn't all right with you, please just shut it off right now, because you don't need to be hearing this. We're going to get weird. So I've been kind of struggling recently with this idea, and I think y'all have heard me kind of struggle with it on the podcast, you know, on some of these episodes where we kind of peel back the onion layer of reality and maybe see that maybe everything isn't quite what we think it is. So, I was hoping, maybe pleading, that y'all could kind of help me work through what does a future religion look like that, you know, maybe takes the best aspects of what we got and then also can project into the future. Because I think that is one of the things that stifle many of the world's religions today, is that the future is some kind of unattainable area, some kind of an unattainable place in which God comes back to earth, right? This is probably much more of a Western religious tradition, you know, the utopian heaven on earth, the shining city on the hill, right? That's what we got, right? Okay, we're going to make a shining city. Great. How are you going to do that? How are you going to even be able to fathom what creating a shining city on the hill is? There is no blueprint for that. Be a good person. Yeah. How many of y'all think our politicians are good people? Any? One good person out of the whole bunch of them? I don't know, man. You know, I used to say Bernie was probably a pretty good guy, but he's probably a turd too. They're all turds. They're just turds in a freaking toilet bowl, floating around and smearing crap all over the walls. So we know that. They're not going to help us. They're not going to help us. Let's not even think about them, right? Let's go back to this kind of world religion that we're going to stitch together with the refuse of a civilization that has killed God. And it's not like Nietzschean or anything like that. Where do you see God on a daily basis in your life? When you wake up in the morning and the alarm clock goes off and you got to sit and wait in traffic to a job in which you sit there for 8.5 to 10 hours, maybe 12 hours, depending if you're a shift worker or not, and you just sit there and get bombarded by either nothingness or everything. Right? You're either constantly busy and just getting pummeled by humanity, or you're doing nothing. You sit at your computer and stare at a screen for 8 to 10 hours a day. Where is God in that? Where is God in paying bills? You know, this was like the biggest qualm for me growing up as a kid, and I could not figure it out. If God if Christianity, if our religion was the most important thing in the world, if this was the thing that was going to get me in heaven by being a good Christian, why did I only do it a couple times a week? I was Wednesday youth at night. Sunday, you went you started at Sunday school, then you went to adult church, and then I did Sunday youth group at night. And still I was like, yo, I'm really not getting why we're supposed to be going to school. And I'm not getting why you're going to work and paying taxes to the government. None of this is for God. None of this is for God. These people telling me how they're supposed to be these moral, upstanding creatures, protecting their neighbors' brothers and sisters and doing the Lord's work and spreading the goodness of Jesus Christ. And I didn't see this in my community. Rarely did I see it. What are we doing? This doesn't make any sense to me. And then it was like, well, you can't live your whole life being religious. You have to take a break. You're a part of society as a whole. Okay, we're a Christian society. Are we not? Well, technically it's Judeo-Christian, whatever. The vast majority of Americans are Christian. Okay? All right? You can say, well, actually, probably the vast majority of us are nothing. But whatever. We'll go with the Christian tradition. That's where I'm sticking with. We'll do Judeo, Western, Abrahamic religions. However you want to look at it. I think they're mostly all the same in this kind of societal area that we're in. But for me, I'm looking at America pretty on the nose. You Canadians, you probably got some of this too. Okay? Sorry. That's what happens when you're America Light. It's not my fault. I didn't make the rules. All right? I'm just trying to tell you how I see them. So anyways, so that's where I'm coming from. I came from this Christian tradition in which I don't get, why are we not just full-on Christians? Why aren't we doing Christianity every single day? I'm full-on Christian fundamentalist, and I'm not even understanding that's what I'm trying to do, right? And then I'm getting all these people okay, well, you can't do this all the time. And then so I was like, okay, so you're fake. This is fake. This is all a fake thing that we're doing, right? Why? Why? Well, you could say control. Well, Karl Marx called religion the opium of the people. Okay, all right. Listen, Marxist, I got it, okay? You're so smart. You got the big brains. You don't need a God sitting down and looking if you masturbate. Okay, I don't need that either, okay? But I do need something. I do want something. Yes, it's not a man sitting in a throne with a giant white beard. Got you. No, I don't think he sent a human son to die as a god on a cross. I'm sorry. Not my bag. Not my bag. I am much more sympathetic to, quite honestly, probably old school, more pagan belief structures in which it's a weird form of humanity that you're worshiping. It's a weird form of nature that you're worshiping. It's a weird form of fate that you're worshiping. And then it's a weird form of the universal structure prime being. There is a one. It is all connected. Okay? So let's start with universal principles, right? Let's start with that this new religion, this new way of looking at the world with spirituality, imbibing yourself with spirituality in every moment of your life, because I think that is critical. Well, I can't be spiritual every moment. No, you can't. All right, I get it. At the end of the day, we are animals. We are animals who, for whatever reason, and this is one of those things that we have to is it even worth debating? I don't know, because we're in the place where we're at, right? So, what am I trying to say? Humanity is an animal that has been given a form of consciousness in which we can see the world around us and comprehend at some level, and we can use that comprehension to change the way the world interacts with us and how we interact with the world, right? Go all the way back to the beginning where we're not even Homo sapien. We're like kind of, I don't know, Australopithecus, all right? And we see the hyena in the Serengeti chopping bones. Chopping the crap out of bones to get to bone marrow. Well, here's the thing we don't have. We do not have an ability to break bones with our jaws. This is very, very key. You are missing so many nutrients out of especially a large animal carcass, especially when you are a scavenger species, if you are not breaking up the bones of dead animal carcasses. So what happens is you can just see it in the Serengeti. You have these beings that are just being able to comprehend that they are slightly different than the environment around them. And it's the bipedalism that is different, and our ability to use our hands. And it was so silly because it's all mistakes. All of these are mistakes, right? And I think this is, but are they? Are they mistakes, right? And this is like part of the universal belief structure right here, is that I'm seeing is that there will be I believe, a universal structure to civilization, to the creation of a species who can comprehend itself, which I think is relatively rare, right? It's a process, and this is where Darwin and stuff would not, especially like evolutionary biologists and stuff, and this is where I'm like, sometimes science is so stifling and too freaking like stale. They've scrubbed all the nutrients out, right? They're blasting it with chemicals. It's sterile. They couldn't imagine that evolution has some kind of end goal, some kind of attainment, right? And I'm not even saying humanity is the end of that attainment. I'm just saying that why would you not? This is almost, I think our alien brothers and sisters would call it planetary seeding. You start with DNA strands that essentially, after thousands, millions, billions of years, you get humans, right? Or something roughly human that would be able to survive on the planet in which it was seeded. Okay. I don't really, planetary seeding, God, it's at the end of the day, it's all the same thing, right? If a smart civilization could figure this out, you're telling me God couldn't figure this out? The creator of all of it didn't figure this out? Didn't put this into play? I don't know, dude. There is something to God creating us in his own image, right? And I'm using he, I'm sorry, non-binary, whatever. I'm just going to use he because I grew up with he. I know he feels right, but it probably is the better way of putting it, because there is all gender, both gender, any gender, no gender, right? There's always going to be aspects to God. There's going to be female aspects, and there's going to be male, and then there's going to be no aspect. There's going to be the lack of aspect, right? And that's God too. So we got this universal kind of, we got to be able to encompass the universe, right? We need a religion that sees black holes and dark energy and dark matter and says, yeah, that's a part of it too, bro. sees quantum mechanics and is like not frightened of it, right? And that's kind of what we need to do too, is, you got the general theory of relativity that guides planets and universes, right? And then you got quantum mechanics that governs atoms and quarks. And the two theories cannot both work because of this fact, right? That we're only studying the hyper small in quantum mechanics. Once you bring quantum mechanics to the general relativity stage, it doesn't work on planets. It doesn't work on black holes. It doesn't work on universes and galaxies. But if you took general relativity and said, well, let's describe atoms, let's describe electrons and neutrons and protons, let's describe quarks and the forces that govern them, well, general relativity doesn't work either, right? And so this is what I'm talking about. Like, we need both worlds. We need the universal world and we need the quantum world. And the quantum world is the world in which I believe is more the individual, right? And my problem with communism is that it's too majoritarian. It's too focused on sameness. It is too focused on ironing out the differences between people, right? There is something just as stifling in completely communal societies as there is stifling about completely individualistic societies. We need to figure out how to mesh both of those worlds in this new religion that we're building. So how do we do that? And that's a very good question. There's these universal principles, right, that I think will be very important for us to really grab and hold, right? I think another important aspect of this New World religion is the focus on the history of humanity. Now, this is could be a little... This one could be a little hard for some of y'all. History. Why would we focus on the history of humans? We're talking about God here. We're talking about spirituality and religion. I think, and I know I've mentioned this one on the pod before, but I think there is something, and I believe it was in other Sunday sermons, because, Paul doesn't let me talk about a lot of this stuff because he's like, dude, you're getting into weird stuff and I don't want to talk about it. And that's fine. But, so I got to do it on the sermons, right? And so, we think about early humanity especially, right? The structures that lent themselves to the creation of civilization. And I think this is one of the most important things about religion, right? Is that it helps develop our worldview. I think our worldview, if we are trying to create a new religion, has to be able to encompass humanity's past. And if we are not studying the past, and that's why I would like to make this historical notion, it would almost be like, if any of y'all have ever read Orson Scott Card's Speaker for the Dead, it would be kind of along those lines. We would have like historian speakers, right? And not like just like, well, George Washington at Valley Forge was writing to Martha Washington. This is like, that's not the history I'm talking about. I want like a much more meta narrative about what is going on, the clashes that are happening, because this is the thing, right? There are clashes happening all throughout history, right? And these clashes are where God is to be found directing, if there is direction, right? There is God in the frickin' details of history, and it is about us going in and finding those details and trying to find where is he located, right? And this is why that kind of pagan kind of multi-god look at things, because they are different aspects, right? There isn't just one human aspect of God, right? There would be multiple. The Greeks would see Apollo probably as the god of history, right? And so if you had historical questions, you would be like bringing about, you would be like asking Apollo for help, right? You would contemplate Apollo. And again, I don't know if we need to go that far and that we need like named deities, right? That like represent, all these different aspects, the agricultural god, right? And the storm god and the sea god. It would be less, I don't know if we would even go so close, but the aspects of it. I mean, we could even call it, right? It would just be nature god, human god, right? History, human god, spiritual human god, go Soul, baby. I would love Soul Invictus, right? That's fine. The sun, you telling me the sun ain't a god? Come on now. I think each of the planets is probably a god. They were probably right about that, right? I mean, think about it. The planet is literally the most connected being on Earth. We are all connected to this giant hunk of rock and all the forces that play upon it. Are you telling me you don't think the planet has some kind of central nervous system and doesn't somehow think, and like ice ages and all that, and like the planets aren't communicating somehow, dude? Come on. Don't tell me you don't believe that, man. Like, there's something. It's all a system. It's all a system, and it's an amazing system that we can't even fathom. That's how it's all connected, and that's why I've always, Paul gets mad at me because I take the George Carlin view on global warming or climate change or whatever the hell we're calling it this week, and that the Earth's gonna shake us off like a bad cold. We're a fever, if anything, if we don't learn how to be a proper species and live on this planet, and then it'll be open for another species to try, right? Monkey wasn't quite right. Let's try rat next time. Let's try platypus. Let's try raccoon or armadillo, right? Like, or something else, some kind of cephalopod down in the ocean in a couple billion years. Who knows? It's going to shake us off like a bad cold. Does that mean that we should just keep on destroying the earth? No, please. At the end of the day, I'm a conservationist. I love the outdoors. I want my kids growing up in the rivers like I did in Arkansas, right? Catching fish and not having to worry about, are there poisons in the fish? Is this going to seriously hurt me if I eat it? Will I be sick if I jump into this water? I didn't have to think about that as a kid. I don't want my kids to have to think about that. I just want them to jump into the river. I just want them to take a fishing pole and go fishing. And so that's essentially why I'm a conservationist. You know what I mean? It's not like, and dude, don't even get me started on all the electric crap, okay? That is not being an environmentalist. That's being like some kind of weird future consumer, right? I consider those Borg people, right? That's the Borg. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They are divinationists in the real sense, right? These and it's almost all coming from the Biden folks, so I'm just going to use them as a all-encompassing unit. But like that, their form of environmentalism is like pseudoscience fake. So don't listen to them. Do not listen to them. It's a bunch of city people telling you what nature should look like. They don't know. They haven't been in nature in 15, 20 years. Oh, Biden goes to the beach. That isn't nature. That isn't nature. He doesn't know anything about nature. So don't even play. All right? So, but going back, let's rewind a little bit. I think nature will be an incredibly important aspect of this, right? I think our ability to go back into nature and to be one with nature, I think, will be a very important part of this. You know, we've talked a little bit on the podcast throughout. Psychedelics will be a part of this new religion with a focus on, it's not just going to be a bunch of freaking hippies taking drugs out in the middle of the woods. Okay, that'll be a little bit of that, right? But it's going to be guided. There's going to be a real focus on mentoring, bringing you up in nature, teaching you about nature, how to interact with nature, how nature interacts with itself, and how we are to be real stewards of the earth. Things that we should be doing. And I think this will be a very important aspect. It'll almost be like, just as a kid, you will go out in the woods for, maybe starting off when you're young, days at a time, but then weeks at a time, and you're with your family and you're with your neighbors and you're surviving off the land, learning how to leave no trace, learning how to take care of the environment and make it better than you found it. Again, being a steward to the planet, I think, will be an incredibly important aspect of this new world religion. So let's go back a little bit more, because I really do want to focus more on, because the human aspect, I think, is very important. And prayer, meditations, a real freaking textual book, I don't think it's necessary. If you are practicing a spiritualism that is embedded in your everyday, where you are acting a prayer upon the earth, you are acting prayer upon your fellow humans, right? Healers, doctors, all these types of folks, right? It would be a completely different type of profession in which we would understand that very rarely, listen, we're all Americans here, okay? Listen, we're all obese. We all sit down at our chairs for way too long, watch too much TV. At the end of the day, some of it is our fault, right? Health is somewhat our fault. But I'm going to give it, again, I'm going to say shitty society, right? It's a shitty society that allows humanity to do this, to become this. Our society has failed us. And religion, right? That Abrahamic tradition is a part of that. They have failed us. They told us, everyone told us to just go consume. Just go be consumers. You don't need to do anything else. I mean, even our only real form of civic participation, that is voting, is just a form of consumerism. I got one vote, and I can either buy the blue guy or I can buy the red guy. And then you're done. That's it. Thank you. See you in 4 years. Or maybe never see you again. If you don't like voting. Maybe we'll never see you. Almost 50 to 60% of the populace does every 2 to 4 years. So yeah, I'm blaming society on this one. But again, this is, I think, and especially, this will be the and maybe this is where the book starts to get written, right? The holy text starts to be written. This will be the I always really liked the term Yonironauts, which is the dream wanderers. And so, these wanderers, these settler, to to use the colonial settlers of the new religious landscape. Would you call it colonial? Maybe a little bit, because we're all going to be taking baggage with us to this new religion, right? And then this is kind of my point. The first folks are going to struggle, right, on how do we even craft this thing, right? That isn't, because it can't be phony, right? It can't be based on a charismatic leader. It just can't be. I mean, maybe it would be nice if we started with a charismatic leader, a real prophet, but the charismatic leader, unless they're killed, is only going to get in the way eventually, right? I mean, the charismatic leader will have to be assassinated, almost assuredly, or they will ruin this thing. And so that's kind of a bummer for whoever that is. Hopefully not me. Don't elect me, because like I said, I don't know if that's how it's going to work, but this person is not going to reach old age. And, maybe they could. Maybe they could just, like, go and do, like, Babaji and just go up into the Himalayas and, be 3,000 years old. But I kind of doubt it. I kind of doubt that. So these settlers, these pioneers of our new religion are going to have to figure out how to throw a lot of dirt and grime, as I call it, onto a lot of these stuffy, sterile environments. History, science, being, I think, two of them, right? Two things that I have been absolutely fascinated with my whole entire life, especially history. I mean, but I've loved science too, right? And all types of science. I mean, especially astronomy, and just like how planets work and how galaxies are created and what is dark energy and dark matter and what happens at the end of a black hole. I mean, these are all fascinating things, right? And then we go again. Let's start looking at humans. The theory of evolution. That's still a theory, right? There are things happening, again, and I think what we're finding is that there's multiple things happening simultaneously, and it is impossible for us as humans at this moment in our world to explain what happens at a macro level and what happens at a micro level. We can do the micro level when we're just looking at it, and we can do the macro level when we're just looking at it. But we can't do a universal collective theory. We just can't. Why? I don't know. I don't know why we can't do it. Probably because it's pretty damn difficult. Like, it took God billions of years. We're like 4.5, 5 billion years into this thing. He did a good job. It's complex. So, complex God, complex history, difficulty explaining the high levels and the low levels. We need a focus on the universe, but we also need a focus on the micro, a real stewardship of nature, right? Mentorship and community, but also a focus on the individual. There needs to be individual growth, right? And I think a lot of that does happen in this nature setting, right? And I think that use of the mentor to develop the person spiritually, right, as an individual, but you're doing it for the community. You're doing it for the betterment of your ancestors. You're doing it for the betterment of your children and their great-grandchildren, right? We are all collectively taking on the past of humanity, which is why it's important for us to truly understand the past, to develop a true sense of our historical past. And you know, you would have experts maybe in individual histories, right? And well, this is the Anglo history and this is the Vedic history, right? But it's all human, right? There would be the jack of all trades that would want to know it all. That would be me. I would want to taste all of it because I love it all. It's all incredible, right? But listen, in this worldview, there is nothing wrong with having pride in your people's history. All right? There's nothing wrong with having pride and being prideful and wanting to share about your culture and things like that, right? Now, it is bad when you start hating other people's, and it is bad when you start degrading other people's or saying that yours is better for these reasons, right? But I think a general sense of pride, this is, I was talking with a buddy, and Plato has this idea about the Guardians. The Guardians are kind of cool. They're essentially Jedi, but, in ancient Greece, and so they didn't have any mind tricks and lightsabers. I think they did have swords, though, so we'll give it to Plato. Okay, cool idea. So these Guardians are essentially, this is where we get the idea of the philosopher king, right? They're warriors, but they're philosophers, right? That they could whack you over the head and kill you, but they could also teach you something grand, right? And this is who's supposed to control the cities. You'd have your nocturnal council that would take care of the nighttime stuff. You have the Guardians who are running the daytime stuff. There's big philosophical talks and everything, whatever. Plato was kind of lame about this crap. I wouldn't want to live in a Plato-ran city. That's all I'm saying. But I do kind of like this idea of an institution that is kind of the sages, right? There's a reason why all the civilizations had a priestly class. I mean, from tribal societies all the way up to very complex, huge civilizations all had a priest class. And again, you talk to the Marxist says, well, of course, right? Those people need their opium. But I think there's something underlying that. And I think it is, again, this is why we need to study the histories. This is why we need to go back and see exactly what our Sumerian and Egyptian and Greek forebears were saying, because they were talking about this stuff. They were talking about all this, which is, sometimes it's bonkers for us to think about. But they had these same questions. How do you live a good life? How do you be moral? Right? What did they say? And what's crazy is that they were probably actually closer to being on the side of truth than we will ever be, because there's now too much. We are bombarded by crap. Just bombarded all over the place. I don't actually know where my belief structure comes from. You can argue, well, it comes from your parents and your grandparents and your friends and your other family members and your schooling and your church and your whatever, right? Okay, cool, awesome. But how much of it actually comes from the culture? How much of it actually comes from the television and advertisements and radio and music and, billboard advertisements and, just name it. All the crap that is subtly bombarded on us day in and day out. How much do you think that affects the way you see the world? I would argue a lot. I would argue it's incredibly effective in molding our perceptions of the world, molding our perceptions of how we feel as humans and what it means for us to be human. If you think, well, I need Instagram and I need TikTok and I need to have the new Caitlyn Jenner lip filler and I need to have the whatever Nike shoes or the new Yeezys or whatever the hell. I don't know. I'm not even that. This is what I'm saying. I'm not even like connected enough to understand the like, what is it that people want shit. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's all crap to me. And this is what I want. If I can give you one part of the new religion, it's to get rid of the consumer crap. To start if I can just get you to like, see that in your brain when that frickin' like that need hits, right? You're like, oh, I want that. And we all do it, dude. We all do it. I've done it. I still do it. I want that. I want that. I want it. I want this thing. I need it. What am I going to do without it? What am I going to do with the ninja chopper? I got to have a ninja chopper. I haven't been chopping things right this whole damn time. I'm just going to chop it up now. It's so easy. Look how easy it is. It's not easy. It's not easy. This is the thing, right? The society in which we've made, the amount of suffering that is caused when you order that ninja chopper, right? That piece of crap, whatever thing from Amazon that came straight from Taiwan. The amount of suffering that has taken place. You know who did a really good job at this? If y'all haven't seen it, The Good Place. It's a silly little sitcom, but they knocked it on the head. Your ability to actually be a moral, upstanding person in the society we've created is impossible. It's impossible. Oh, you got that electric car? Oh, you're saving the environment? That whole thing was constructed using rare earth minerals that were collected by slaves. Real life slaves. Real slavery happening in Southeast Asia and Africa. In the Middle East. Real life $100 bought and sold slaves. Dying in rare earth mineral mines. Strip mining the land. Causing regional wars and instability. Hundreds, if not thousands, have died since the creation of the electric car, and that's just to get the rare earth minerals inside the damn thing. That's not including any other part of the building of this piece of shit car idea. What are we supposed to do in that situation? As humans, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to think about it all the time? Impossible. You know, Paul's answer would be, go out into the woods and say, it's not my problem. But I've always been a real fan of Cincinnati's. Until I found out that he was a patrician and was actively trying to rebuke plebeian access to the Republic. But we'll sideline that. We'll sideline that part. Patricians are the rich folks of Rome. Plebeians are the poor folks of Rome. Apparently Cincinnati hated the poors, but, you know, whatever. So the whole patricians have always hated the poors. They've always hated the poors. This is not a new thing. The patricians now still hate the poors. They still hate us. They gave us COVID, and then they gave us. It's not that fun when Paul isn't here. But anyways, you guys get where I was going with that joke. And they gave us a freaking, immunization that's gonna fucking kill us all. But whatever. It's better for them. It's better for them now. We're actually in a place where mechanization can handle most of the crap for them. There's 6 billion unneeded people on the planet now. Just remember that. Just remember that. I mean, you could argue, let's get into the history of humanity, right? You can argue that World War I is merely the elites doing a handshake deal saying, hey man, these poors are getting pretty high and mighty. What if we killed them all? You think King George or Tsar Nicholas or any of those assholes ever worried about getting killed at all during World War I? Ever once. Were they worried about their lives during World War I? No, they were not. No, they were not. No, they were not. They were fucking cousins. Yeah, they were cousins. And you don't think they had a little small conversation about what if we killed millions of these people who are trying to take our heads, who are trying to create republics, who are trying to create democracy for the first time, who are becoming proletarians. This is where Marx gets things right. This is where Marx is on to something, right? Because what happens is you have all these freaking peasants moving into cities, working at jobs, but now they're in a smaller space than they've ever been before. They're literally living on top of each other. And that's how community is made, brothers and sisters. The very thing that the elites used to cause, to exploit would be the better word, to exploit humanity, to exploit the masses, was the very thing that we used the masses to scare the crap out of them. We were closer together than we've ever been before. We were working alongside each other, brothers and sisters in arms. And this is why we really need to explore our history and on a religious level. All right, y'all, that'll be it for today. That was your Sunday sermon. All conspiracy, all the time. Later.